Good afternoon. It is Friday, December 8th, 2023. There are times where large numbers of Christians gather together and have a wonderful time with inspiration and encouragement, usually tremendous music, and enjoy that time of large group gathering. Jesus had some of those events. The Sermon on the Mount gathered around a large crowd. The feeding of the 5,000, a huge crowd gathered together for a meal and for teaching and instruction. But then there are also times, just as important, where there's small group interaction, where times for small groups to get together for instruction, a little deeper instruction, and being challenged and encouraged and building of relationships. In the passage we're looking at today, it's one of those such times of small group interaction. In Mark chapter 9, verses 30 to 32, and I'm reading from the New Living Translation, second edition, it says, leaving that region, they traveled through Galilee. Jesus didn't want anyone to know he was there, for he wanted to spend more time with his disciples and teach them. He said to them, the Son of Man is going to be betrayed into the hands of his enemies. He will be killed, but 3 days later, he will rise from the dead. They didn't understand what he was saying, however, and they were afraid to ask him what he meant. They had a time of small group, but they just weren't responding to Jesus. They weren't taking advantage of the opportunity to talk with him like he wanted them to. It says they went through Galilee. That's the northern part of the country. It's a ways away from Jerusalem. It's around the Lake Galilee, and many of them were from that area. This was home territory for them, familiar territory. And so they're walking in places that they've been to before. And he specifically wanted to spend more time with the disciples. He was avoiding the crowds so that he could have that close, intimate, personal time with the disciples. He wanted to teach them. And here's the content of what he wanted to teach them. He says, the Son of Man, and that was his self-designation. That's how he referred to himself, often in the third person. The Son of Man is going to be betrayed. Now, in that small group, Judas was with them. And they had to wonder who would betray him. And it has to be someone close, because you're not betrayed by people you don't know. And going to be betrayed and betrayed into the hands of his enemies. They'd been dodging around Jerusalem some and trying to avoid some of the things that were happening. But now he says, I'm going to be betrayed into the hands of my enemies. By the way, it's very tragic to be labeled an enemy of God. And I would hate to be in anyone's shoes who claims to be an enemy of God. And then he made it plain, very plain spoken, says he will be killed. That's the plain spoken prediction of his forced death at the hands of others. What a prediction. And the disciples struggled with that. They did not understand how that could happen. How this man that could walk on water and feed the 5,000 and do all the marvelous things he did, how it would happen that he could be killed. And here he's telling them plainly, I'm going to be killed. But then he said, I will rise again 3 days later. And that really stretched their unbelief. Killed, okay. But then rise again? They were not in any kind of frame of mind to absorb what he was saying. They did not understand, and he says they were afraid to ask. Now, I've read the rest of the book. They did come to understand, but at the moment, they did not understand. And I look back on my life at things that have happened that I did not understand. Having to do a funeral for a 5-year-old that was struck by a car and killed. Things I didn't understand. But somehow I'm comforted by the knowledge that if I give it time, that maybe I will come to understand. we may be afraid to ask. It's okay to ask anyway. I think Jesus wanted them to ask. I think he wanted to stimulate a conversation with them. That's why they were in the small group time. And the disciples chose not to say anything because they're afraid of not looking smart enough, not looking spiritual enough, it's just all kinds of things. Their own inadequacies made them afraid. We need to be able to ask the questions, especially when we don't understand. I hope that this is a good week for you. But if this is a time in your life where things are happening you don't understand, I'd encourage you to give it time and give God the time to bring you to understanding later. May God bless you.